Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the day three of the IPR Career Summit. Today we have with us Mr. Subhadip Sarkar, and he will start the first session. And for those of you who don't know, Subhadip, he's a vice president, legal and corporate affairs at Cognizant Technology Solutions, and he has over 2 decades of diverse industry experience, blending technical, legal, and management expertise. As a senior leader, he collaborates with the executive leadership and board of directors to drive key legal and corporate affairs initiatives globally. His role encompasses global legal operations, commercial contracting, IP licensing, commercializations, governance strategy, and India government and external affairs. So it's a great honor, sir, to have you on the stream. I'm sure the audience will have a really nice, knowledgeable session. And please feel, I'll give you the stage. Please, happy that to even hear your experiences.
Sure, sure. Thank you. I hope it is all clear. My voice is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank
Perfect.
you so much. It's a great opportunity to be here. So, my intent today is to cover a few slides in the first 30 minutes to give you a overview of what are the different career streams that are available for an IP professional in an in-house role, in a corporate role. Of course, in a law firm, things might be slightly different, but typically, what I will cover is, what happens as an in-house role. Uh, I'll also, try to tell you that for each of those roles, what are some of the skill sets required, some of the challenges that you may face, etc. And then, the next 30 minutes could be devoted for answering any queries that you may have. So please, keep your questions ready. I'll try to answer whatever I can. And otherwise, if I don't have any answer, I'll surely get back to you. But let us try to make it as interactive as possible. So with that, let me take you to the first slide. I hope it is visible for all of you. Uh, Okay, now if you really look at the first question that often comes to our mind is what is expected from an IP professional in a corporate setup? And what are some of the goals? Now, if you really look at the goals of any IP professional or any company when they want to drive IP strategy, there are three broad buckets as the way I would classify. Of course, these are not standardized. I mean, people can classify it in different way, but the way I would like to classify is the first bucket, which talks about how do I generate IP and protect those IP, identify all the proprietary assets, ensure that first is the identification stage. So you need to have a process around identifying what are the ideas, innovations, or product ideas or service ideas, whatever that comes from the organization. As an IP professional, you are expected to identify and have a process of identification. Once you have identified those IPs, those assets, the next stage would be how do I best protect it. Now protection strategy has to be built in, protection processes have to be built in, where we generally talk about whether a patent is the right approach, or should we go for a trademark, keep it as a trade secret, get and go and get a copyright, or a combinations of any of those. So there has to be a strategy behind it, and the underlying downstream processes. What I mean by underlying downstream processes would be, uh, if you are trying to file a patent, how will you file a patent? Who is going to draft the patent? What are some of the search that you would do? Whether you call it patentability, novelty, prior art search, different searches are there. You will have to do those searches to figure out what is the novelty, and then have the downstream process of drafting the patent application, making the inventors file a disclosure document, which would be your starting point to understand the invention, then go for drafting, and then filing, and then the prosecution until the grant is obtained. So that is what I call as the downstream processes. And then you of course have, how do I mitigate some of the risk that may be involved. Risk could be of different nature. It could be a litigation risk, it could be an enforcement risk, it could be, any kind of a compliance issues that may be, required. Now with the advent of AI coming in, there are of course lot of, inherent risks that are associated with, IP. Some questions are, not very clear for the IP professionals, and it will evolve over time. So those all aspects need to be, managed through the risk mitigation sub bucket under the main bucket. So IP generation, protection, risk mitigation, all of it comes under, that first bucket. Now the first bucket also involves, what are the processes that I have in terms of, let's say, incentivizing the inventors. Now obviously, as a role of an IP department is not just about protection, but to ensure that the inventors are recognized for their invention. So how do you manage the inventor recognition program, the patent reward program, whatever may be there, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it is an obligation and a duty from our end to ensure that we keep the innovators motivated. So all that comes under that bucket. There could be also strategies of building an IP portfolio. You have to keep in mind that while you can identify assets, you can evaluate those assets and see what best protection you can have. But there is also a inorganic way of trying to grow your portfolio through acquisition. Acquisition could not is not does not necessarily mean that you will have to acquire the company for getting the IPs. You can also target IP acquisition, or a small chunk of strategic patents that you feel are important for the company, and you acquire those patents and then build your portfolio in an inorganic manner. Now that also involves a lot of, what do you say, processes, because it is not just about acquiring the assets, but you have to there is a process involved of how do I do the due diligence, how do I really figure out the quality of those patents, what do I do with those patents, what will be my cost involved in maintaining those patents. All of these needs to be uh, you know evaluated before you basically decide that yes, I'll acquire the portfolio. Again, acquiring the portfolio is not the end of the story. You have to not only maintain the portfolio, but you have to integrate the portfolio. Sometimes you may have to change your assignee. You will have to see whether I can file further patents, around those inventions. Or you may decide that no, certain portfolio or certain patents out of that portfolio I'll not maintain. So all of these are activities that you will need to do, and for which you again need to develop those policies, processes, competencies internally. So overall, I think these are at a very high level the activities that are involved under the first bucket of generation, protection, and risk mitigation. Then comes the second broad area, which I say that how do I manage IP in my contracting process? Because you have to understand that end of the day, whatever you are protecting from the first bucket needs to be commercialized. You have to make money. Now, how do I, ensure that the contracts that I sign with my customer, or the potential parties, are well protected, and how do I ensure that my risks are mitigated contractually? So all of these comes under the second bucket, where in a commercial transaction, you would realize, and you will see people who are in the software area, they'll know that it is not just your proprietary IP that gets commercialized in a real world, but you have a lot of third party tools that gets integrated into the product or services. There are a lot of open source, free and open source softwares that are used, freewares are used. So therefore you need to understand the risk involved, the IP ownership of all those third party components, how those are getting embedded into the overall product. How do you classify or demarcate your risk versus a third party risk? Those needs to be covered contractually, and that's where the IP professionals need to play a larger role. Now, one thing which I will also mention, the IP protection or the generation part, is not, I gave a lot of examples around patent, but the same holds true for even, other IPs, which is trademarks or copyrights. They have their own processes, they have their own evaluation that you need to do. If you have to file a trademark, you have to do certain knockout searches on the mark before you can conclude. So you will have to do all those exercises. Same is the case with copyright filing has different procedures in different regions, so you'll need to know those procedures and follow those procedures. Coming back to the third bucket, which is around how do I make money, which is monetization, exploitation. The second bucket and third bucket, there may be an overlap, but the second bucket primarily talks about the contracting piece, whereas in the IP monetization, how do I actually make money? Now when you say making money out of IP in a internal in-house setup, it is not necessarily that I have to generate license revenue from my uh, product always from my patent. That yes, I have to license out my patent, and if I get some money from the customer, then I can consider that those are IP revenue. Yes, it is straightforward IP revenue, IP licensing revenue or patent licensing revenue, but there are other ways of also monetizing. It could be indirect monetization. For example, you could use your patent to block certain competition. Now thereby you can end up charging a premium on your product. So therefore that's also a kind of a monetization. You can use your portfolio as a branding advantage or a differentiator. So there are different ways of indirect monetization and exploitation which you can do. That's why I use the word exploitation. It need not be always that there's a money associated, a direct money, but it's a form of an exploitation that you do. And then you can get some tax benefit in certain areas which allows tax benefits on IPs. So those are aspects that you can do. You can actually do a valuation of your IP asset, have it incorporated in your tangible assets of your books. So those are different ways of doing it. And of last but not the least is of course how do you enforce your IP. You in terms of what I mean by enforcement is that yes, if you see a potential infringer of your IP, can I enforce my IP rights? Can I assert my patent rights and get some money, a licensing revenue, or do a settlement, or whatever may be the or even get into a litigation dispute, etc. So these are aspects that broadly covers the third area, the third bucket. Now, for all of these areas or some of the buckets, you will also have issues around dispute management, whether it is, any kind of, while in the third bucket, I gave you the example of how do you assert your patent rights or IP rights against a third party. There could be the reverse scenario where a third party may actually assert their patent rights against you. How do you defend that? So those are some areas where IP professionals definitely need to play a very important role, and you should have that skill set. So this is what is overall expected from the IP professional. Let me take you to the next one where it's a detailed slide which talks about the different activities. I've talked about broadly many of the areas that I spoke on the first slide. You will see it again in the second slide, but this basically tells you the activities. For example, in patents you of course have prior art searches, you have novelty assessment, drafting, prosecution, filing, or any kind of a analysis that you do, whether you want to do a patent landscape analysis and competitive analysis. You want to see what my competition is filing, where are they filing, what are they actually filing. You want to figure out that yes, there's a new area that has developed. Can I see what are the areas where people may not be filing, which could be a good opportunity for me to block that space? What are some of the areas which is already blocked and I possibly will should be very careful if I have to enter that area? So those are the landscape analysis that you do. You can also do analysis to figure out who are the potential infringers so that you can enforce your patent rights. Then you have to maintain your portfolio, right? I mean, overall, in course of time, you will have your patent portfolio would have grown. Now if you just sit on the portfolio without doing an audit of the portfolio, without maintaining the portfolio, or abandoning the ones that you don't use, you will end up with very high cost, which is also not going to be feasible in long run. So you will have to constantly do those audits to keep the portfolio live and more active and meaningful. Same is the case with copyrights and trademarks. You have those searches, you will have to do the filing, you have to do dispute management, you have to send out notices or respond to notices. All those activities come under copyrights and trademarks. And then in terms of managing portfolio, as I told you, portfolio analysis, doing the asset management, maintaining your portfolio, maintaining the cost, because some of these activities, remember, not everything may be done in house. You may also outsource certain work to different law firms. Now, when you do those, you will have to review those work, ensure that the work aligns to your overall strategy, because a law firm may not know the IP strategy of the company. That is for you to drive. But the activity that they do should be aligned to the strategy, and therefore the in-house professional's role is to see whether that alignment is matching, and whether they are filing as per whatever is your long-term goal. So you will also have to work with the law firms to do maintenance, but at the same time do some cost optimization to see that you're not overshooting the cost, because everything is you'll have a budget for everything. So all of it, when you are doing the portfolio analysis, all of these activities come into play. There could be also in the contracting space, you can also expect work around joint collaboration, whether you are doing some collaboration or partnership with universities, academia, or even companies, different vendor partners, etc. How do you protect your IP? How do you own the new IP? Who owns what portion of the IP? How do I protect my existing IP? What kind of licenses will I give to the other party for generating a new IP, but I will ensure that I give that IP as a license and not allow the other party to own. All of it comes under the joint collaboration activities. Then audits, we talked about. Trade secret is another area which is important, especially with the speed at which some of the technologies are moving. There could be a strategy for some companies that they would want to keep certain ideas within themselves rather than filing for a patent or disclosing it too much externally. So therefore you need to have a very strong trade secret process inside the company to ensure that those ideas or confidential information remains within the company. And if there is a leakage, then you will have to get involved to see how you can mitigate those leakage. How do you ensure that your employees are protecting the proprietary information that they are privy to? And last but not the least, the IP processes, which is extremely important, because while the other ones that I talked about are the activities, but IP processes are the boundary conditions, because it defines different policies, it defines different processes, guidelines, templates, and these needs to be updated. These needs to be changed from time to time. So if unless you have the process, the governance and the control, you will never be able to drive IP management, irrespective of whether you have the best strategy or not. So a lot of emphasis needs to go into the IP processes piece, where IP professionals need to play a very, very important role. Training is another area which is again a continuous activity that needs to be done within the organization. You have to train your technical people, your business teams, your other teams, and keep them updated on the processes, what they should do, what they should avoid. All of these goes into different trainings. Also, training the IP professionals within the IP team is also important, because technology is changing, the laws are changing. So you need to keep yourself updated with the latest information to drive IP strategy. So internal training also plays a very, very important role. And also to overall have the culture of IP within the company is also very important, because IP management is not just about always a process or a governance or an activity. It's an habit, it's a mindset. So therefore those things have to be also covered in the overall IP training. Awards, communication, docketing, of course it is part of the administration. Budgeting, all the employment matters becomes important, because there may be some breaches on IP, or there could be issues where you may be hiring somebody from external other company, and then there may be some IP conflict that may arise. There could be issues around non compete, etc. So the sharing of confidential information, so those all needs to be covered by the IP team. So these are just a snapshot of some of the activities that are expected from the IP professional in different headers, and there could be more than this. Let's move to the next slide. The way I look at skill set, apart from obviously knowing about the subject matter, the law, the process, and etc., that is given. I mean, you cannot compromise on that. That's absolutely, inevitable. What is important is, apart from this, I think the habit of upskilling yourself, or motivating yourself to upskill and learn is extremely important, irrespective of whatever may be your age or experience or qualification. Upskill has to be done, otherwise, for any profession, otherwise, anybody can become redundant at any point in time. The habit of upscaling, which involves reading, writing, networking, is absolutely important for IP professional. If you miss out on these things, then you will find that you're lost somewhere, and it becomes extremely difficult to bring yourself back if you don't get into this habit. Second important and critical skill set is forward looking, being proactive and analytical. This is one of the very important aspect which is required for any IP professional. You need to think beyond your present time. You need to, when inventors are coming with an idea and they are seeking your advice on how to best protect it, you have to think not for today but tomorrow, how the technology can be used, what are some of the other use cases which even the inventors may not be thinking, because that will help you to give the right advice in terms of what best protection strategy you can adopt. So you will need to have that analytical mindset, be very proactive. The third aspect is business alignment and challenging the status quo. What I mean by is that if you have set up everything, your house in order, you may be thinking that this is the best I have done, this is the industry best practice, and I'm doing what other companies are doing. And but then if you don't challenge your status quo in periodically, then eventually you will see that you have not really benchmark yourself. So you will always have to go with the assumption that there could be something that I can do better. So challenge the status quo, and ensure that you don't run your IP processes as a standalone process. It has to be aligned to what business wants, what business needs, and what is the final outcome that the company wants. If you are running a practice which is just like expecting that, okay, it's like a shop that I'm running in a locality where I will just be standing and sitting and let people come and ask me, then only I'll come. It doesn't work in an in-house environment in IP. You have to constantly be in touch with business, understand what they're doing, guide them, take their advice, help them, and then they will somehow feel that, yes, this guy is going to give me some value add, he's able to add some value to my overall goal, and that will essentially help you build a partnership. That's how you can drive IP strategy. And last but not the least is have a passion for technology, especially if you are in the field of patents. Because if you don't love technology, then you may get bored very soon on doing patent work. So you should understand. It's not that you need to be expert in any technology, but at the same time, you need to educate yourself with the basic information. Today's world is so easy to get yourself educated free of cost. So many courses are there. You need to do those basic courses, get yourself equipped, and again it is linked with how you upskill. And then of course business and law are the basic primary skill set that is required. The last one, this is my last slide, and then I'll open up for questions. Overall, I think the way the approach should be that you will need to rethink on your IP strategy always. It cannot be a constant, it cannot be a static IP strategy. It has to be focused on what the business wants, what the company wants, and it should be measurable. You cannot have a goal which cannot be measured. It has to be measured. If you're talking about saying that I'll file all the filings that comes to me, that that is just a activity. But can you put a metric saying that I will ensure that 50% of whatever I file should have some kind of a commercialization value or monetization value? Then it becomes a measurable goal, then it becomes a outcome based goal, more strategic in nature. So that is one aspect. And if you do that, then your efficiency overall increases. It reduces your overall cost. It contributes, you are able to contribute to the revenue generation and growth of the company, and then thereby business will see a value from that. So overall, I think the first aspect is changing your IP strategy constantly. The second part is execution plan. This has to be constantly, changing, because this will affect the overall effectiveness of your IP program. How you can customize your IP models, how you can actually enable growth for the IP team members. Because you have to also remember that IP models or IP strategy or whatever IP you want to drive in a company cannot be one static, which I told, but more importantly, it is not a one size fit all model that yes, just because company A is doing this, I'll do this. That activity may not be even relevant or meaningful for you. So you will have to devise your own models by looking at and reading all the models, understanding some of the industry best practices. But end of the day, you will have to drive those for you, whatever works better and how it works. So those aspects are important. Now, the last piece which I also wanted to cover was in terms of competency. Now, in a in-house scenario, you will find some people in the IP professionals who may not be lawyers, who may be having technical knowledge, technical qualification, and may be interested and passionate about IP, and they may have experience and they may want to pursue the career. Then the second part is people with pure law degree, or lawyers may also choose for IP as a profession. And the third could be a combination of both. You can have uh, mm, uh, technical people with law degree, or a combination of both in some form or shape. Now, depending on what your skill set is, if you are coming from a background where you feel that you may not be able to add much value in the patent world because it requires some technical knowledge and you're not able to build that, then you can look for other areas. And I talked about areas which you can contribute. You can contribute on trademarks, copyright, developing IP strategy and processes, doing certain activities relating to monetization or contracts, like in terms of licensing. How do I contractually mitigate my risk? So all these activities you can do. People who are you know who has a inclination or a more inclination towards technology may choose patents and all the activities around patents. So therefore, there are work that are meant for different areas of people, and there is a career transition also that can be expected. So there are many companies who may have a a hybrid kind of an approach where they'll say that okay, one person will work on patents, copyright, trademarks, do a bit of audit, do a bit of processes. It can be all of the many things. There could be other scenario where they may have segregation in terms of whether you know uh, what do I say, I mean, they might say that there's a team of patents. Now you work on patents for 2 years, then after you are done you can move to trademarks, or you can move to copyrights, you can move to audits. So there could be a career transition that happens from one stream to another, and by the end of x number of years you really become a generic IP professional having knowledge in everything. But whatever process you follow or what the company follows, end of the day the goal should be to acquire as much knowledge as you can in different areas of practice, and then see what best you can do, how you can upskill, how you can develop, move further to what you have already learned. So that is all I think I had to cover today in terms of slide. But then, I'm open for any questions or anything that you feel I may not have covered. I'm happy to answer. But that's all for my slides.
Great, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a really comprehensive and a top view, which usually, we don't see. It's because we are always talking about our fields. So I took a session on patent analytics yesterday, and I see that it was such a small part of the entire, umbrella of things that you have mentioned. So great. I'm sure the audience saw these kind of things for the first time. So, sir, I can ask you one or two questions before we
Sure.
get the audience. So, sir, how big is the team of IP in, say, Cognizant or in typical, industry-wise, like in IT sector in India? So, how many employees kind of are there?
See, it's a very difficult thing to put a number. I'll tell you why, Rahul. But the point is that what happens is that in certain companies, the definition of the IP team may be little broader, and in certain
Hmm.
companies, the definition of IP team may be just restricted to what I showed today, right, in the slide.
Hmm.
Now, if you really look at the activities that I had shown you in the slide, which is pure IP, if I say core IP work, uh,
Hmm.
the team size may depend on 10 to 15 or 20 people. Okay. Now, there are companies which may expand to a little broader, saying that while these are activities, but I will also include activities relating to IP contracts into the IP team. So all the contracts with the universities or with a third party that I'm doing, or I'm licensing in a particular technology, I'm doing a technology transfer contracts, I will include in an IP team. Now, if that is included, then you will have more lawyer strength, and
Hmm.
the team may increase to 25, 30 also, right?
Hmm.
Now, so therefore, some companies may say that my open source compliance team, which also is part of my IP team, then the team size may even increase to 40 people also. So, but then
Hmm.
if you're looking at a core IP, it is usually between 10 to 15 or 20 people is
Hmm.
what I have, generally known.
Hmm. Great, sir. Great. Thank you. And sir, one more question before I get to the audience, sir. How is hierarchy? Like, suppose you have to report to which kind of top management, and because you said that IP people have to actually interact with all departments and take
Correct.
initiative and keep going to other people, not wait for people to come. So what are
Correct.
the hierarchy basically?
So typically, in majority of the company, the IP function is part of the legal function, the corporate legal function, and usually the head of the IP either reports into the general counsel or the group general counsel, so on and so forth. Now, there are also certain organizations where the IP function reports into the CTO organization, the Technology Office organization, where the head of IP may directly report to a CTO, or there are organizations where they have Chief Innovation Officer also, like
Hmm.
who is basically responsible for driving innovation, and a major portion of the IP department reports into that person.
Hmm.
But usually what I have seen is in an Indian context that it is part of the corporate legal team, and the IP head usually reports to the general counsel, is what I have seen.
Hmm. Great, great, great. So thank you. These things we are difficult for us to know and the audience.
Sure.
So, sir, one more maybe question. So you mentioned all different kinds of IP. So which one is the most important focus? Suppose copyright, trademark, trade secret, trade designs, patents. So out of these five, six different kinds of IP, where is the most important focus for companies?
See, you cannot really put a emphasis because it depends on the industry type. Okay,
Hmm.
because these are different forms of IP, and the nature of the IP decides the kind of protection that is required. For
Hmm.
example, if you are talking about, let's say, a software industry, then obviously for a pure software services industry, patents will be important, But at the same time, copyrights may also be important because the company strategy may be that whatever
Hmm.
code I generate, I will copyright. But some
Hmm.
company will see that no, I'll not, have copyright because by default I'll have the copyright. So therefore, I will not register it. So why go to the hassle of registration? So it's a strategy. But if you're
Hmm.
looking at, let's say, going to a music industry, right? The entire scenario changes. For them, the copyright becomes very important.
Everything.
Now,
Yeah.
if you are looking at a pharma company, now pharma company, if you look at it, while patent is their bread and butter, but trademark is also their bread and butter
Hmm.
because their mark is
Hmm.
very, very important, right? So, but
Yeah.
then if you're looking at a pure services company, the trademark may not be so relevant because the number of
Hmm.
marks which are marketed is not very high. So, a B2C or B2B kind of a company will decide what is more important. So, but
Hmm.
I don't differentiate as an IP professional. I think we should keep all the IPs at an equal footing because they
Hmm.
are all powerful in their own respective way.
Hmm.
So that's what the way I look at it.
Amazing, amazing, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Let's take some audience questions, sir. So Shreya is asking, so this is a very common question. People are, sometimes not having science degree or they don't have a law degree, and so how do I begin an IP strategy or IP portfolio career probably without law degree? Are there any specific skills to gain before entering the domain without LLB or LLM maybe?
So I think what is important is firstly for a person, the first check would be that do you have a technical background? Okay, whether you have a science background, engineering background, etc. If you have yes, the answer is yes, then I would choose. Of course, the answer that I'm giving is one of the answers. There could be 100 ways of looking at it. But if I have a technical background, I would possibly choose a patent area with the technology that I like or I have qualifications on. So, for example, let's say if I have done, my bachelor's and master's in biotech, let's say, or microbiology, or those kind of area, then for me, I'll see whether I can do certain courses on IP and then enter into a pharma domain where they can invest time for me to get trained, and then I enter the patent domain, then I enter into more of copyrights, trademarks, etc. So that is one area. Now people who may be coming from a non-science background, patent may not be their first choice. I'm not saying they cannot do it, but patent may not be their first choice because they might be scared of the technology because their background is not technology. So
Hmm.
they might say that, okay, let me get into copyrights and trademarks, get some training around that, and enter that field to start, and then I can start expanding my portfolio.
Hmm. Great, great, great. So I think another question, probably a bit of a reverse of this question. Being an organic chemist without a law degree as well as engineering degree, as a freshers, what strategy should follow to pursue an IP career?
See, there are a lot of people. Actually, I have so many of friends who are experts in organic chemistry. Whether pure organic chemistry or chemical engineering, those kind of background, they have entered IP field and they are doing very good in chemical industry. They have, in fact, there are head of IP for different large MNCs who are managed, who may not have a law degree, but they are doing quite well because they have learned, they have been trained, they have taken that effort to expand their career. So it's possible. So you will have to choose the industry type depending on what your qualification is and what your interest is.
Mhm, mhm. All right, all right. So let's see some other questions. Any roadmap? Okay, let's see. As a fresher, how do I think it's a similar question. So any roadmap is there, or because I think most people land into IP careers, they don't specifically try to make a roadmap.
Yeah, see, initially, I think, there is the concept of roadmap is something which I never liked, to be honest, because, in a career profession, it is like that you will have to create the road yourself using a particular map, right?
Hmm.
Now, I have given a snapshot of the map in my presentation. Now, how do you create a road depends on two conditions. One is by entering a company and seeing what their strategy and career stream is. You can come with a very fancy road saying that 3 years I will spend time in patents, and then I will go to copyrights. But then the company may say, no boss, you need to do patents and copyrights together, right? So sometimes you will have to uh, build your career path by starting somewhere and then seeing how it progresses, what are your interest area. Because you have to also look at, consider and factor in your interest. You may feel that yes, I will want to start with trademark, but then you might get bored in 6 months in trademark, and you will say that no, I want to now move into patents. So I don't think you should really worry about roadmap at the moment. Your entry point is important, which should be a combination of what your passion is, what is the industry type that you are choosing, and whether you are able to start and get yourself trained. Because training is important. You have to learn, and learning on the
Mhm.
job is extremely important. So so therefore, start wherever you can, depending on the industry, your interest, etc. And then let's create a pathway for you.
Mhm. All right, all right. I'll ask the audience if you have any last questions. Sir, I have actually a lot of questions based on your slides, but let's see. Let's see one question is there. Samrin Khan, how to know about the current technological trends in a particular field? I think a bit open-ended, but
What is I'm just trying to see the question. How do you know about the current technology trends in a particular field? See, if I have understood the question, see, there could be a lot of answers for this. Now, current technology trends in a particular field, if you want to look, you can obviously look at different reports that are available. You can do your own research. You can do a patent search and figure out what are the technology trends that you see in a particular area where people are maybe filing, where people may be litigating. So those informations are all available, some through different paid tools, some you need to put in that extra effort to do analysis using free sources. So you can figure out in different ways what the technology trends are. But otherwise, even if you don't want to look at only patent data, generic reports are always there.
Mhm, mhm. All right. So, sir, I'll ask some questions. Audience, if you have any last questions, now is your time. So, please make use of sir's time. It's very, very valuable. Sir, my question is, in terms of litigation, which are the most important areas, or which types of IP, or which types of areas? Is it invalidity, or is it, say, in patent, suppose, is it infringement? What kind of activity goes on in litigation?
See, in litigation, of course, patent litigation is obviously there, which is not only expensive, time consuming, but can become heavily complex. Now, the so that is one area, but at the same time, we should not discount litigations around trademarks and names, because that has immediate effect on your branding as well. See,
Hmm.
in a patent infringement, while you can, somebody sues you, or you enforce your patent right and sue somebody, but it will take time for you to really understand the courts to come out with the judgment and the damages, etc., and it's a long drawn process. But when it comes for a trademark dispute, and let's say somebody is able to get an injunction quickly, then it affects your entire branding proposition. If you're trying to launch a product, or a particular services, etc., and suddenly you see your mark is in danger, then it jeopardizes your entire
Hmm.
strategy. Your product may be the best, but your branding strategy jeopardize everything. So trademark
Hmm.
dispute and litigations can be very vulnerable. Now, in the same time, copyright can also be bad depending on the industry type. Because if, let's say, you get into a scenario where you are delivering certain software code and it is asserted that the code has been copied, or you would have used certain open source software without complying to the open source license terms,
Hmm.
and there is a dispute around that, then your entire delivery of the code to your client is again compromised. Your timelines
Hmm.
are missed, your products are not launched. Client can actually invoke their contractual rights against you, and you land up into another suit, right?
mm,
Which is about, contractual dispute, breach of contract. So therefore, every dispute can lead to a disastrous effect, and therefore that is why the risk mitigation plays a very important role. Now, you may not be able to mitigate 100% of the risk, but the idea is to minimize the risk and see how best you
mm,
can reduce your risk exposure by thinking beyond time. That's why I keep saying, right, you have to think through before you
mm,
advise your business, that these are some of the issues that may arise. Let's say, for example, you have done a analysis on an idea or a product, and you figured out that this product may be, very close to infringing some IPs, but you are not very sure, but it's a very crowded domain. Now, when you are licensing out that product to your customer, you should mitigate or minimize the risk in the contract by saying that, hey customer, I will not, my limitation of liability for this potential IP, third party IP infringement, will be capped to X amount and not an unlimited liability. Why? Because you know that there is a potential risk element. Yeah, because you have done that analysis. So therefore, these needs to be linked together, mapped, and then only you can really
mm.
mitigate the risk.
Yeah. So, any sir, practical overview of trade secret, is it something that is common in India, or is it rare, or how does it go in India? Because I've only heard it as a theoretical concept in IP.
See, the way it looks is, obviously we don't have a trade secret law separately, while there are a lot of talks going on in having a trade secret law, etc. But currently it is protected under common law. But for, even if I leave the legality, the aspect which is important is, what are we trying to protect as trade secret? It is the confidential information which
Mm,
you feel are critical for my trade and business, right? Now, if you have looked at, let's say, any employment agreement, when some people join, when we all join any company, in our employment agreement, there is a confidential information clause, right? Now, what are we trying to do there? We are basically trying to protect our proprietary business sensitive confidential information. Why? Because if those information lands up externally to some wrong hands or are my competition, then I may
mm,
have certain loss. And whatever investment that I have done, it all goes waste, right? So therefore, the idea of a trade secret, whether it was called a trade secret or it is not called as trade secret, but the concept is same. Concept was always there in Indian contract law, and it is still there. So therefore, the idea behind is that how best I can protect the confidential information. Let's say, for example, I have a lot of confidential information in my company, and I have signed a contract with you, Rahul, saying that, as an employee, you will protect the confidential information. But
mm,
I make that information available to everyone in the world, including all employees, and not restricted to only you who may require that information. Now, end of
mm.
the day, it's a lack of control on my end, that I have played a stupid act by giving it to all the employees. Rather, I
Yeah.
should have restricted to you, and I would have told you, saying that, Rahul, you have a look at this information, and then after 15 days we will delete it from your laptop, right? That's control.
Mm,
That is what is required under trade secret law in different jurisdictions, where it says that you will
mm,
have to maintain it as a trade secret, because if it
mm.
gets into a dispute tomorrow and it goes to the court will say that, who told you that this is confidential information? How do you know, how can you say that this is confidential information when you have given it to all employees openly? This is not confidential, then this is not a
Exactly.
trade secret. Okay. But so the aspect which is important in trade secret or confidential information is that, one, what are the information that are confidential, how are you preserving that as confidential information, and what are the contractual protections you have. If you cover these
Mm,
three aspects, then it becomes important. Now, the last element of trade secret is that, when do you decide something to be kept as trade secret? It is
mm,
only when you basically say that, in a scenario where you feel that, if I file a patent, the patent will be available in the public domain after 18 months. But I really don't want people to know about it. I want to rather, keep it secret, because I know the longevity of this technology may be only for 2 3 years, and by the
Hmm.
time I get the patent, the technology is already dead. So why should I, even get into the patent route? Rather, I'll keep it as a secret till, my differentiator exists with respect to that particular confidential
Hmm.
information. So that is when you decide, saying that let's keep it as confidential.
Yeah. Great, sir. Great. I think maybe one last question, sir, I can ask only since I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
see any new question. Sir, universities have this thing that they want to increase the number of patent filing and also to improve, say, the quality of patent filing and to also show that they have commercialized some patent filings. So, sir, what should be their strategy to go in the right path, go in a positive path in all these three directions?
See, one is of course nurturing. The biggest problem, I think, the biggest challenge for universities would be to inculcate the habit of people to think. That itself is the biggest challenge, right? Because
Hmm.
we are not wired to think, we are wired to perform, right? And that is where the problem happens, right? When we are talking about university, we our main goal is that, okay, can we get the past question papers and start reviewing and studying so that we can get good marks. But
Hmm.
if that is the motive, then that innovation wiring is not happening. So
Hmm.
therefore that itself is the biggest challenge, and if you can tackle that hurdle, then 50%
Hmm.
of your work is done, because then people will be motivated to think, and then you basically start evaluating their ideas. But given, while that is important, I think what is important for universities to do is create platforms for students to share ideas.
Hmm.
Then people will say that, feel that yes, there is something available for us to share ideas. Second is recognize the good ideas, bad ideas, whatever, but recognize people who have submitted. And third is
Hmm.
link some kind of a performance or evaluation, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
today people would want to get a value out of what they are doing. then
Hmm.
then that becomes important. And the fourth is, of course, if you can develop and have partnership with external parties, whether it is other universities or other companies, and you say that these guys will work with some of your mentors, have the mentor program from university, from companies, then they need
Hmm.
mentors to think. Because you have to understand, this innovation process is a scientific process where you need to train people to think. We are not born to just think. We are not thinkers.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
train everybody, and it's not just I'm talking about India or anybody. Everybody need to be trained to think. So that is what is the first step. And after that,
Hmm.
having platforms, incentivizing, giving some
Hmm.
performance reward,
Processes. Yeah.
KPIs, having KPIs, those kind of things will definitely help.
Hmm. Great, sir. Great. I think at a very basic level, they have to start, and platforms and processes are the easier part, basically, to have these KPIs, platforms, mentorship, and so wonderful to have you, sir. Your thoughts and your ideas about the ecosystem, the top level view that you have given the audience. So really appreciate it, sir. I think that if it's okay, we can wrap up 5 minutes
Yes,
early. It's not a problem. And
sure.
sir, any
It
last
was
words if you
lovely.
have? Yeah,
No, I think it was lovely, talking a lot of good questions, mainly from you, but others also, they were all good questions. So wish you all the best, and thanks for inviting me. This was really great, and pleasure to talk to everyone.
absolute pleasure for us, sir, to host you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was Mr. Shubhadip Sarkar from Cognizant Technology Solutions. So thank you, sir, for a great session. And within a few minutes, we already have Govind Kedia, who is with us in the backstage. And within 2 minutes, we are going to start Govind's session.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thank you.
we
Thank
can
you.
take a 1 minute break. Yeah, thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll introduce Govind while before I bring him on stage, and I think we should not waste any time. We can start. We don't, because YouTube has this thing that it has a lot of distractions. So if I let anyone take a break, we don't know if they are still watching the stream. So we are having with us Mr. Govind Kedia. He's a managing director of Arctic Invent, and he helps companies to build value by creating and executing IPR strategies. He's a registered patent agent. He's one of the very experienced and a top IP professional in India. He's recognized by IAM magazine as one of the top 300 IP strategists in the world. He has expertise in deep tech, AI, software patenting, and startup venture funding. So I welcome Govind. Thank you so much for joining us in your tight schedule, and yeah, absolute. We are looking forward to hear from you your thoughts on career, IP, skills, and yeah, I mean, I am around. We can have an interactive session. You can guide me how we want to proceed, and we will try to keep the chat engaged.
Sure. No, thanks, Rahul. It's always pleasure to be on your sessions, and always lovely audience, and it's always wonderful to also interact with the community of academia and also students and looking for the journey in IP, right? So uh, while I wanted, I think let's keep it very interactive and let it free flowing. I do want people who are listening in to say hello so that I know that people are listening in. Just type in hello because I want to
Yeah,
keep it
yeah, just write on the
interactive.
chat.
Um, so that I know that at least somebody is listening, so that I can also start, talking about it. And I think the way I can start is probably sharing my journey as how I went or how did I end up in IP. And I think that would be something that, you know, very interesting in a way that probably when I think about it, IP was a choice for me in a way. So I think I can share my insights. I saw Professor Anindya Sarkar was also there, and he just left. But
He's
I'll
there. He's
also
there.
share, how he also played a very very significant part in terms of my journey, in terms of inspiration, right? And it's really a pleasure and honor to be actually in this session where he is there or he's part of it, right? So let me start, right? I'm an engineer by background, graduated 2007, 6, 7, I would say. And I am a biotech graduate. I think I don't know if people are listening in, they can also type in their branch or degree. I think I can also try to relate to their entire conversation based on their background. So I think audience, if you're listening in, Shreya, Shruti, Subhadip, Dr. Pradeep, Dr. Sanjay, write what is it that your background are, so that I can also talk in context, and so that whatever time you spend next 15, 20 minutes or half an hour, 1 hour, has to be something that is useful for you. So yeah, let me start. So I started out of engineering, college, um, and as any, I mean, back in 2007, the trend was that uh, people were taken in a literally like in a bus. Software companies come and then they will be loaded on a bus. 400, 500 placements was pretty natural, pretty easy, and uh, colleges were kind of growing with that entire hiring from Infosys and TCS of the world, right? And it was across domains, right? It doesn't matter who you are, a biotechnology or electrical or a civil, just just have basic qualification, and then you are loaded on a bus, and then you go through a training, right? And while I was good at computers and kind of, I like technology all the time. I always loved technology, and but I never sort of saw myself as a software person, right? I mean, that I will be doing and spending time in um, in front of computer writing codes. And also, interestingly, I also did not picture myself in a wet lab doing the pipetting and doing the culture also, right? So I think that was a very interesting kind of revelation, that at least sometimes we start with what you don't want to. Sometimes people have these things that, okay, I want to do this, I don't want to do this. I think the first thing that when we are building our careers is also to think about what you don't want to do or what you don't enjoy doing, right? I mean, yes, it could be very good, it could be very, very lucrative also in terms of finance, but will you enjoy this in a long run, right? So I think back then I was at least in a way that, okay, I don't want to write codes, I don't want to be in the wet lab, so what is my option, right? And I think the back then it was very limited option, honestly. I mean, for engineering graduate, of course, now engineering people can become comedians to entrepreneurs. I don't know, everything is, or of course, a lot of there is no barrier now as compared to when I was graduating, right? So that's really a good time for all of us, irrespective engineers or BLLBs or PhDs, right? Now, at least the barrier has gone really down in terms of market, in terms of whether you are skilled or not. That is the basic parameter nowadays, right? So that's a great situation to be in. Don't crib about the market is bad and all that, because I can tell you this market is actually very good for people who want to work. Uh, so coming back to my story, I keep putting these, gyan, so to say, in the middle. And Rahul, if you want to extend any of these conversations, we can follow it up, right? So I'll try to, finish it in next 5-6 minutes, this entire conversation. So I think, yeah, so I think I was clear that what is it that I don't want to do. And then I kind of thought about, okay, what are my options, right? So one was I do some further studies, maybe do an MBA. Maybe there was a clinical trial technology which was happening. I mean, India was becoming like a clinical trial hub. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe IP, right? And IP I got exposed in one of the coursework in the college, and then I also was fortunate to got a summer school in Germany. I mean, again, that was really exceptional, but I think it just, I was aware that I need to find something in the third year of my career, education, that I was very consciously thinking, yeah, मुझे करना क्या है? What is it that I want to do in after BTech? I think so. That is third thing that I also want to tell a lot of people here, that start early. Whenever you are thinking to build a career, take at least 2 years, like as a benchmark, that you will take 2 years to figure out what you want to do. Maybe do some internships, maybe do some freelancing, whatever you like, right? Because I think that's also very, very important in terms of building the career, right? So again, so I knew what I don't want to do. I started early, and then the long story short, because I was very, very kind of keen on a couple of options like MBA or clinical trial or IP. I thought that maybe let me put my best in IP. So I kind of back then, I think probably the biggest spammer in very limited IP companies who were there at that time, and I try to learn as much as I can in terms of knowledge. Whatever I could read in this subject, I try to grab that and build my knowledge around it, and that works, right? And sometimes a lot of people will talk about luck, and the way I define luck is opportunity meet preparation. So I was fortunate that I was preparing for this, and I got an opportunity to join CPA, now Clarivate. Very, very niche role which came out for a biotech graduate, who they were looking for in a very specific department. And because I was so actively looking IP as a keyword, I think some HR consultant picked up my resume and got in there. And that's it, right? That's how I got in IP. Right? So that's my story to get into IP. And then of course, you take, of course, after 5 years, you feel like, why did I come in this, industry? I think everybody by default feels that, and it's pretty okay, right? And it's pretty natural. If you ask anybody in any industry, who has spent 5 6 years, they'll be like, yeah, it's a shit industry. I don't want to work in it. Right? But that's a natural, thing, and
Hmm.
we keep aware ourselves and make sure that we avoid these, conversation in our head. So, I mean, yeah, that's my story. How did I end up in IP? And
Hmm.
I think, as I said, and just reflecting from my own lessons and I did make a lot of mistakes. I mean, I was from a Hindi medium school, very, very diverse schooling, 6 schools in my 12-year schooling, despite my parents being in a very single location, not in a transferable job. Just that coming from a tier 3, tier 4 cities, I studied in Vidya Bharati and Vidya Mandirs, and English was not natural to me. But I did. Once I started the job, my manager in the first 3 months told me, Govind, if you want to succeed, you have to have a language capability. Technically you will evolve, you will learn, right? But language is
Hmm.
like a basic thing. So I think one thing that I also want to put it here, that of course in the era of ChatGPT, probably the bar has been lowered, but you need to at least have a good command over language to build a good career in this field. Right? I think that's a very, very basic kind of conversation, and I let's not get into that. Why it is so and all those things. I mean, I'm just stating the
Hmm.
facts. Right? I'm not here to debate. That
Yeah.
why Hindi or whatever. Right. So, but I can tell you with my experience that um, that know what you don't want to do, start early, and build a language capability, and try to get as deep as possible in any area for which you want to build your career. And in today's age, I think, Rahul, you have been doing this webinars. I have been following you and your work, and I think it was not available back 15, 16, 18 years back. Right? I mean, knowledge was not available. I think
Hmm.
today with the chat GPTs and YouTubes, and I think you can actually do anything. I mean,
Hmm.
you can even make a rocket sitting in a home, and I think there have been some videos and all that. That
Yeah.
yes, you are dedicated. That okay, I need to learn this. There is enough resource which
Hmm.
is available for free. There's no
Hmm.
cost. So I think it's to do with the mindset, and the intent and the that's it. I can tell you, as an employer, we employ. I mean, we have a team of around 70 people in Noida office, and one of the biggest perennial problem is people. Right? I mean, no
Hmm.
matter how people say that there's no jobs, I can tell you, as on the other side, there are no people. There are not enough people to join the workforce.
Hmm.
There are enough people for sure, but there are not enough people who can join the workforce. So
Hmm.
that's like a matching problem, so to say. But I think if anybody is listening and they are here to
Yeah.
learn, how to build a career in IP or anywhere,
Hmm.
I think you just need to invest in your kind of skills and your
Yeah.
knowledge and your practicality. Don't get swayed by the posters that is on the hoardings by a college that you know that guy has got 50 lakh package in a Microsoft. There will always be a bell curve phenomena.
Hmm.
Read about it. I think don't get swayed by 10% of that bell curve. Always strive to be there. There's nothing wrong in that, but don't ruin your life just to be in that zone and not do what 80%, 90% people are doing. Right. So
Hmm.
I think with that, I'll probably hand over to you, Rahul.
Wonderful. Yeah. I
Any
can tell the
question?
audience that I have been to the Noida office of Arctic Invent. It's a wonderful place. I will try to get the email address of the HR and probably send an email tomorrow that if somebody is, really interested, in certain positions, I will check. And, you can apply for those jobs. And 70 people, Govind has said, it's a lot in the IP field. If you see, even like the most established law firm, let's say in India, or they are not more than 500, 1000 employees. This is not an industry where it's like TCS, you have 10 lakh employees, which is like the biggest in IT. So IP is more niche subject, but uh, 100 200 is like a very can say already a really really successful company. uh, so yeah, I'll tell the audience, please ask questions to Govind. I have many questions I will ask, and I'll share some things. So Govind also mentioned that IP, we have been doing these webinars for 4 years now almost, and Dr. Pradeep, he just mentioned this immediately, that for a very long time he is connected with Turnip, and that Turnip is doing a great job. So thank you, sir, really appreciate, and uh, most welcome to the stream. So one experience I'll share from IP training and education is that IP is closely linked to innovation. Actually, the basic thing is innovation, right? Then you basically use IP as a tool to extract and to exploit the innovation. So innovation, startups, entrepreneurship, these are central fun concepts, that are kind of necessity before IP comes into the picture. And that is why Turnip also, we realized that IP will keep being niche unless we work on this entrepreneurship. And Govind also mentioned that nowadays there are so many tools out there. You can upskill, you can build a rocket at home. So many things are possible, that we need to encourage overall innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem to grow, and then automatically IP will take care of itself, because always there's going to be need of people who protect and exploit these innovations. So, all right, Shreya, thank you for your comment, for the valuable words. Okay, Purnima may have a question. Before I ask question, I'm trying to see from the audience if they have. What is the minimum qualification to take up IP job? Okay.
I think it's a very broad question, Purnima. I think you have, if you could mention that what is your qualification, I could have given a better context to this question. But
Yeah, maybe
I think,
Purnima can give. And
yeah, so I think, but like any other industry, there are various roles in IP, right? I mean, I think if you, I was also partly listening to the session before me. I think that there are like technical roles, there are support roles, there is sales and marketing role, there is specific data roles, there's a support roles. So there are all sort of like any industry. If you can think about, let's say even a CA industry, right, a finance industry, right? What's the basic qualification to join a finance industry, right? So the answer will be that you could be either CA, you could be either a BCom, you could be even a BA, you could be even a 12th pass, because there are different roles, right? You can be even an MBA from a top tier college or whatever it is, right? So I think so I think that is something that I believe that that will also help. And I also missed, because I did not see Dr. Sarkar when I was sharing my story, but I can tell you one very
No, no,
incident.
no. Govind, I was there for the whole entire session.
Yes.
Rahul had put me backstage.
Yes, but I do want to share very very kind of an incidents. There was this conference used to happen in Bangalore called Bangalore Bio, and back then Dr. Sarkar was head of IP for Biocon, and I kind of I, because I was so passionate about this topic and subject, I went to this conference, of course, with my friends. Of course, we were hunting for the job. Honestly, I think 2006, I think it was, and I especially went to. I was the only one in my group who went to attend, Dr. Sarkar's lecture on IP and to know more about it. And I think my intent to go in that conference what back then was also that Dr. Sarkar was speaking, and I wanted to know about the topic. And I think that's the crazy I was, and I was like, yeah, kuch to karunga, and he's my inspiration to be one. And thank you. I think I do want to acknowledge Professor Sarkar for inspiring back then to be in the IP career. So thank you again. And yeah, sorry, please ask the question. If
No,
I
no, thank you very much for your kind words. Sometimes,
Then all the speakers of this conference have been students of Dr. Sarkar. I was
yes,
thinking Govind said nahi hai, but all
nahi.
of us, all the five speakers, they have been. So,
I
great, sir.
think
Please.
back in
that
2005, 6,
that was
there were
that's what
handful of
makes
IP
me
professionals in
happy.
India. Yeah,
That's what makes me happy. The more successful you are, the more happier I become. I know,
thank you so
Govind, you possibly have no regrets in moving into IP from technical.
absolutely,
It's the same thing I have done. But if you
absolutely.
can share, what different kind of roles. What are some of the areas which really gives an IP professional the kick?
Hmm. Hmm.
The kick that this is something I done, and this is the salary I've earned today. Okay, my monthly salary can come less, but this is what I've achieved today, and this is the actual salary which I've earned today. If you can share some thoughts on those.
Sure. No, I think again it's a very very interesting question, and I can tell you again in various roles, different kicks happen. For example, in a research role, for example, you are tasked to find closest prior art about a topic, and sometimes it's very hard to find certain documents and certain things to be able to either kill that, or let's say find the closest prior art to that invention. If you're doing an invalidation study or if you're doing a novelty study, it's for an analyst, when they go back home they feel so satisfied that I was searching for something and I found it. And and sometimes it's like finding the god in some projects, like literally you have tried everything and you have looked for something and you found a YouTube video which was actually talking about whatever you were searching, and people feel so good about themselves and doing that job. That's on the research side. Then let's say if you are on the drafting side of it, right, let's say you are writing the patent and all those things, they feel good when their written patent get granted, right? I mean, they feel so happy. They feel that yes, they have written something which have been accepted. Same for office action or the prosecution people who are doing and back and forth, conversations with the examiner and kind of arguing why they should be allowing this and why they should not be allowing this, whatever the case is. These things give an IP professional amazing satisfaction in terms of, because eventually they also know that whatever they're doing is helping a innovator to protect its right, or whatever the situation is. Of course there could be offensive defensive situations, but I think in this industry at least you can see your work has some certain output or outcome, not the output, the outcome of your work is pretty more visible. Not all the time, but I think a lot of times you can see that whatever effort that you put, there was an outcome of that. You can imagine that. I think I can tell you for me, what gives me great pleasure. We work with a lot of startup companies and innovators and corporates and all those things. But especially when we work with companies who are developing great technologies, and back of that technology, they are able to raise funds or IP become also important critical factor. I think that gives us so much joy as a company that we were able to be making a small part in that entire big of things, right? I mean, we worked with one of the uh, just to give an example, one of the robotics company raised I think a lot of money based in Gurgaon, and for us it's a very pride matter that we are part of that company from the start, and
Hmm.
that company is being successful and being now unicorns and all those things. So I think that really is very very important. And I'm not saying not other jobs will have, but IP, I think there is more chances you will find that in more kind of things. So I can give many examples, Professor Sarkar, but thank you for the amazing question. Thank you so much. I hope
I,
it
I have
answers.
ano- I have another question. Okay,
Yes.
this question is, before I ask that question, let me share something. See, because in various roles, I handle reasonably large teams. And when people used to search prior art, I had a very harsh saying that until you find the prior art, the search is not over.
Yes. Yes.
So that's the kind of, it may sound a little harsh, but it has helped. See, now my second question to you is more on a basic level. See, when we talk about IP, what I find that there are many terms. Okay, IP itself is one of them: intellectual property, innovation, venture capital, smart, this sponsoring that. Especially the word innovation, then KPI, is that. These are terms which are very loosely used.
Yeah.
Okay, very, very loosely used. And I sometimes feel that even the word innovation is not also well understood.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, what are your thoughts on this? That we are doing this awareness program, this kind of Turnip is doing a great job by this kind of events. But actually, if you look at this, awareness programs have started 25 years ago in India.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So,
my point
sorry,
is
go ahead.
that we have been doing this kind of awareness program from the government level, CI, FICCI, this, that. Now private companies have come in because there is a business in it. Uh, why even after 25 years, 30 years, hmm, I mean, there is still so much need of awareness.
Yeah.
Where do you think all these programs have gone wrong?
Yeah. I think I have a different view on this, Professor Sukar. That if you look at India as economy and we as a business ecosystem, I think we have started innovating last 10 years only. I mean, of course, we are innovating in a different sense. We are innovating services. We're innovating, the ways to have more, generic medicines and all those things. I mean, again, no offense. I mean, that was the right time. That was the right thing to do at that time. Uh, and of course, whatever effort that was done back then, which you mentioned, Professor Kar, I think it were just the start. It's always when you start, you don't see result immediately. The results come 5 year, 10 year over the period, and then the private players like different players will come, and then the results start showing. But I think if you look evolution of our own economy or the business ecosystem, I think we have started innovating last 10 years or 5 6 years. I mean, look at the startup ecosystems, look at the VC money coming in, look at the incentives that government has put in together on Make in India's, and promoting IP as a basic, sometimes in a such a critical manner that if you want to have a incentive from a government, you have to have an IP on your products and all that. So I think it's not wrong. I think it just now that we are maturing as economy and we are moving to a 4 or 5 trillion economy in the next few years. I think to move there, we need to innovate and we need to create, not to follow. And I think that's why IP is becoming more and more, relevant as a conversation. Uh, and I think government had, or you had that view when kind of started that. But I think it has accelerated because of there is a push from a very top that okay, we have to do this as economy, otherwise we'll not do well. So I think that's my view, that nothing has gone in vain. I think it's tied to a larger picture of the economy itself, right? I mean, that's my view on this particular awareness topic. And I think engineering colleges, I think I was fortunate to at least have a subject on IP. I think
Hmm.
academia will evolve. I think we still follow a lot of textual, and I think before my session, Subhadip sir was talking about that how we are not training people to think, but now we are training people to think, right? And the
Hmm.
more we train people to think, the more IP and innovation and invention. I know it's a very loosely terms. I'll try to give my definition of what I understood of it. I
See,
definitely, yeah,
the issue here is when the evaluation is exam oriented,
yeah,
preparation has to be question oriented.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So the students who are in any college, any field, everybody wants to excel. It's required in such a populous country with this cutthroat competition. Hmm. As long as evaluation is going to be exam oriented, preparation will always be question oriented.
Yeah.
So I think I should give chance for some of the participants to ask
Yeah,
some questions.
yeah. Let's take one or two. There was one question on FTO. How any platforms for landscape analysis and FTO analysis? Neha Yadav.
I think, yeah, there's plenty of knowledge available on YouTube and lot of service provider websites. I think the biggest companion of learning now is ChatGPT and all these LLMs which have come up, right? I think just practice with them, ask them what is it that FTO is, what the landscape searches are. I think we are in an age that it's so easy to learn anything. I can tell you that I have written softwares having zero coding knowledge, and I'm so proud of it. I don't know how to even troubleshoot. I just copy paste and tell it, hey, this is where I'm stuck. Tell me. I think start with YouTube, build a basic understanding of these terms, then use these LLMs and intelligent models. Pick up make like a dummy project. Let's say ask the GPT to give you a dummy project. Okay, FTOs. Go on Google Patent, search it, tell me back that okay, this is what I found. How to approach it, right? I think if you know what is FTO is all about, what is landscape search is all about, I think learning it and doing it is very easy now. As I said, start with YouTube, watch some videos. There are plenty available on this, what it is. Service provider websites. Then pick up Google Patents. You don't need to have any commercial databases. Google Patent is good enough. Lens.org is good enough for doing some basic stuff. And that's it, right? And there is always these things that ChatGPT is vague and hallucinate and all those things. True, it's absolutely true. But you are in path of learning. You are not doing something critical, right? Yes, it will tell you something which may not be exactly the way it has to be, but at least you have some idea, right? It will not. I can tell you in learning process, it's pretty okay. I think. And that's where your human intelligence should come. That if it is saying something which does not make sense, you have to question. I think that's also a very great skill to build. I think in today's age, I would rather want to build a skill that I can find faults in what ChatGPT is telling me and make a logical connection. It is telling me something wrong. Trust me, this is going to be a future skill. This is something going to have so much value in the future that you can question what a computer is telling you is going to be the amazing skill to build, right?
Yeah. I mean, future of skill development is completely turned around, and that's right. If you challenge ChatGPT, it will do wonders. Actually, you get so much more information. And yes, I also mentioned lens.org yesterday in my patent analytics lecture. So it's great for landscape. I mean, just put in some keywords and you get really good charts and everything. So lens.org, you should visit. So very direct question, Shreya. At your firm, do you consider life science graduates?
I think again we do. I mean, we do have people from life sciences backgrounds and all those things. Depends on the firm DNA also, right? I mean, a lot of firm DNA is a lot of life sciences. A lot of firms do not have a lot of life sciences. I'm coming from a biotech background and life sciences background, but to be fair, I think yes, we do a lot of life sciences, but we are not probably the largest team of life sciences people. I think. And having said that, one thing I do want to add in this conversation, especially when we are talking about careers in IP, an IP professional is never is a domain expert. Like a life sciences person may be tasked to do a computer science project in a real services world. Of course, if you go in-house and different things, separate matter. But I think one thing that all the graduates in today's, if they are want to build an IP career, must sign up that even if they're life sciences, their job will be stretching them to learn physics, stretching them to learn mechanical, stretching them to learn computer science, stretching them to learn VR, stretching them to learn quantum computing. Not that you have to become experts, but at least have a basic technical aptitude to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, to some extent I think this happens also in the patent office. The examiner, how difficult job it is. Do they know every technology field even within their own area? Does a chemical engineer know, because all technologies are kind of a combination of technologies, so you
It
have
is it
biotech
is
and chemical combined.
much better now. See, when I
Hmm.
started my practice in the late 90s, Indian Patent Office had only 24 examiners,
Hmm.
spread over 5 offices.
Yeah.
So everybody was an expert in every domain of technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we have a couple of thousands, and the patent office has restructured themselves into verticals
Hmm.
based on the patent classification codes,
Hmm.
and it is much better now. We used to joke that whether you want your anti-diabetic patent to be examined by an aeronautical engineer, some said it will be horrible. Some said no, that's the best thing to do.
That's a good idea.
It's much better now, and I think we need not worry about that part anymore in India.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. We have Tejas. He has okay. What practical skills should be developed to get field of IP in corporate or law firm? Actually, this is also kind of my question, because obviously it looks very generic kind of question. But Shubhadeep sir was mentioning this thought process, ability to think, and obviously you were also mentioning, Govind, that people who want to work, that kind of. So what in those regard, because a lot of people may have skills, but then companies are not hiring them. What kind of practical skills can we really talk about?
Sure.
See, the simplest route is for LLB graduates, where internship is mandatory. Do your internship in IT firms, IT companies. See, normally an LLB graduate does 10 internship in his entire curriculum of 5 years course, of which one has to be in an NGO. That's how the Bar Council works. So do most of your internships in IT firms or in law firms in the domain of IP.
Yeah.
That is the best and the easiest way to absorb what's happening, to see what's happening, and of course, learn.
Yeah. I think I also want to add a different I mean, absolutely what Professor Sarkar said is that exactly a very practical thing to do. I mean, in terms of what is in your control, right? But I also talk about this competency iceberg model, right? I don't know if you have my presentation, but if you can put that slide, I can quickly explain if you want to. I think that is something that I want to kind of put that, and I learned it from someone. It's not my creation. It's something that see if you can find that slide. There's this something called as competency iceberg model.
Yes, it was in the beginning. It was in the beginning.
It was in the beginning, right? Just go back. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think this is something that I have always, kind of, I learned this from somebody, and it was something that is something that may sound like a gyan to a lot of people, especially students and a lot of people, honestly. So bear with me to go through it, but try to understand what I'm trying to build on. So what is easier to do is to acquire knowledge. Go on internet, read a act, you will gain the knowledge of that area, right? What patent is, what trademark is, what law is, and all those things, right? Now, when you do internships, you basically learn the skill. So knowledge is what college gives you. Skill is what internships give you. Right? That's a more, kind of, over the sea, tip of the iceberg in a sense, right? That you can see very easily the knowledge of a guy, a skill of a person, right? But what is deeper than that, and this is where we need a lot of work as students to do, and I wish I knew this when I was doing this career and all those things, is that what is it that we are, why we are doing this skill development? I mean, what is our social role? Have you really thought that you want to do this or not? uh, do you have that self image that yes, I want to be a, a IP person? Do you strongly believe? And it's a very hard to change kind of things, right? If I want to be in a trademark or IP business, what trade should I have? I may be, sometimes have to be critical thinker, right? Sometimes I need to be argumentative. Sometimes I should be able to find new angles to a problems. These are traits, very hard to find, very hard, and it's developable, or what do you say? It is something you can learn, but it's very hard to change. The motive, I can tell you, this is where the whole problem lies. And there's nothing wrong, and don't, I think the way the education, and no offense and no disregard to anybody in the education industry, but the way motives of students have become is to just earn the money from, I have invested 20 lakh in this course, I want to make 1 CR or whatever money it is, right? And it is absolutely fair. But I think where we need to put that motive shift is that how can we change that motive to something bigger than money, right? To help someone, to drive certain sense of achievement, to drive a certain sense of affiliation. Like, at least when I started, and I now think about it, my motive at that point was कि मुझे IP में career शुरू करना है. I don't care about anything else. I did not care about money. I got an offer from a law firm at that point for 10,000 rupees, where they were saying you have to come at 8, you have to leave by 8. I was okay with that. I was a technical graduate. I was okay with that. Of course, word has, universe had a different plan for me, so I got in a different job. But I think, had I thought about, nahi, this is something that I'll not accept, I mean, my motive was not clear, I would have been in a very different place. Right? So I think, while what we have to build knowledge by reading and understanding more, build skills by doing the internships and the work and hands-on things to build that skill, but also work on these hard to change aspects to build a great career or a great professional career, so to say, right? So it may sound a bit of gyan, but I can tell you that this has been very powerful when I learned this way I think about it. So
Yeah,
that's that.
the story you shared earlier, that you were the only one who went to Bangalore and attended a lecture by Professor Anindya Sarkar. That, how many people do that? Think about college students, who are doing their bachelor's. They don't even know or think that they want to. And he specifically went to, probably you also read the speaker list. You probably, did your research, and that's what is expected. That's basically a sign that you are a professional, how much homework you are doing. And obviously many people who are attending this IPR Career Summit, also probably you have it in your back of your mind that something in IPR, maybe you have a future in IPR. So great
I
stories,
think,
great stories, and
as
really,
as Baba Ranchhod Das once said in Three Idiots, "Beta काबिल बनो, कामयाबी झक मार के आएगी." I think Baba Ranchhod Das has done really great job in telling in a very simplest manner. And
yeah,
trust me, it may sound comedy or absurd, or I don't know, some people will believe in that, but I can tell you at this point of my career, spent in 15, 16 years, yet learning and I still know that IP. No matter I cannot claim that I know everything. I can tell you I've just not even touched 20-30% of the knowledge in this world. I I humbly accept whatever have come to me, but I still believe I'm a student in IP. I don't claim that I know everything. Sometimes we have to be make sure that we keep learning.
Yeah.
No matter how much you have spent in the industry, at least that's my view about IP. That I everything every day you are looking at something new, new regulations, new way to do things. Even in trademark, I have learned so many things. Sorry. Yep. I think that's. Let me not extend this question. I think let's
Yeah,
move to the
Shubhadip
next.
Sarkar, sir mentioned this. He mentioned it casually, but he dropped also a big bomb. When he was saying that, uh, he was, even in a corporate job, you cannot sit idly. You have to read, you have to write, you have to network. Don't think that you know something and then you enter a job and then that's the end of it. So yeah. Yeah,
Thanks.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I did a course in my final year studies, mechanical engineering in NIT Allahabad. One of my friend came and said that WIPO has a course. It's called Distance Learning 101. So DL 101. It is their most famous free course.
Yeah.
It is their most famous free course, and we did it. Okay, and when you are students, you are looking for free courses. Anything that boosts something. And yeah, I passed that exam, and they were like, yeah, well done. They gave some kind of a e-certificate, and then I didn't know they had my address. Somehow in the form probably they asked for my address, and within a few weeks I saw that they sent a physical certificate from Geneva. WIPO sent a physical certificate from Geneva, and it was such a big thing for me when I was a student that somebody sent a really nice big certificate, and it was a bigger certificate than what you normally see. A really big envelope, and came from Switzerland. So then I proudly put it in my CV, and my understanding is I went into the IP field because always this part was in the CV, and
Yeah.
naturally somebody from IP field attracted me. uh,
No, I think thanks, Rahul, for bringing it up. I'll tell you one thing that I've done when I was building my career in IP, and how many people are how many people are still there, and how many are freshers. If they can say a hello on the chat just to check the engagement. How many people are
if you are
freshers?
fresher, just write
Yeah,
fresher on the chat.
fresher or hello, whatever you can write. Uh, but here is something that I can tell you as employers, something that I have noticed how HR filters things. So let me, before the telling the secret, I want to know how many people are listening. So if you want to know this secret or hack, start typing or do something.
Yeah, you
Otherwise,
have
I'll
to
not.
write something.
Uh,
Fresher. Yeah, because 15 seconds it takes at least, because of the lag. So yeah.
Fine. I'll wait.
Yeah, fresher with LLM. Anant. Purnima is saying hello.
Great. So I think even if there are two people, I'll still share this. Right? Is that it's very very important. Like I also tell you, when I did my resume, I did a course from ILI. I don't know if it still happens or not, but my resume at that point had at least 5 IP courses listed, like DL 101, ILI. I think some things, and it was very specific. When I used to send that resume, it was only going to the IP kind of companies. That show, and of course I was, it's not just putting for the sake of putting it, right? It is also that I did my homework. I learned at least that if they challenge me and ask me, hey, what do you know, I know something about it. So always make your resume not with chat gpt. Of course use chat gpts and all those things, but do not, keep it balanced. Put as much as you know, but also make it that a recruiter who is probably looking at hundreds of resumes every day, finds a sign that this person may have something that I may want to look at. I can tell you, people send resumes with practically no context in their email, no subject in the title.
Hmm.
In the email, they just dump the resume, and that's sometimes
Yeah.
they send resume with the spelling mistakes. Sometimes send resume with spelling mistakes. Sometimes
Hmm.
they will copy tens of employers in a single email copy and then send the resume. These are signs. May not be that person may be great, right? But these are the signs that a person may not take it in a very positive manner, or just a filter, because you are
Hmm.
fighting with lot of people. I mean, and this is how the universe works, right? I mean, I have not built this system, right? I mean, from creation of human to the pollination of flower, this is how the system works. You have to compete. That's it. And so have the basic job application aptitude at least. And I can tell you, as basic as it sounds, 7 out of 10 resumes that we receive are really something that a recruiter will just not even open it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's no context, or it appears that they have just used ChatGPT. I mean, they have not put any thought behind it. So I think these are some of the things that if you are building a career in IP and all those things, have some bit of basic etiquettes of professional life also. And unfortunately or fortunately, I also was not told when I was doing engineering key caps means that it is like shouting in corporate. I On day one I was in my desk and typing on Skype in caps, and my manager was like, "Why are you shouting at me?" I said, "No, I'm not shouting at you." He said, "In corporate, caps means that you are shouting at somebody." I was not aware. These are such a basic etiquettes, right? um, invest time in learning those things.
Yeah.
And इसमें chat GPT एपीटी कभी झूठ नहीं बोलेगा, कभी hallucinate नहीं करेगा. They give you like a ebook to read. A lot of material is there, yeah. So I think I know that freshers struggle the most for getting jobs, and if you are not from a something that gives you head start like ITs or whatever, it's even harder. I get that. I'm also coming from such college. I'm not coming from a tier one kind of college in all practical sense. Your superpower is your hard work, your ability to hustle, your ability to increase your opportunities by doing the right things. So do that. Don't complain about that, that guy has this upper hand. I
Hmm.
think one thing that I learned in my life is that we crib that person has got that person has got that, and what we don't realize that how hard he might have worked to get there. And now we cannot just look back and say he has got lucky, whatever it is, right? That's how life is, right? So I think it's going up very motivational conversation and tangent. I don't want to go there, but I think these are some of the things. Rather than knowledge, I
Hmm.
think building the mindset with freshers is the most crucial thing. Don't worry about IP skill. IP skill people will teach you when you get in a job, but getting in a job is a different skill.
Hmm.
uh, right? So build that skill. You will learn IP सिखाने
Yeah.
में 1 महीना नहीं लगेगा किसी को भी.
Somebody needs to say it. So all the things that Govind is mentioning is that somebody needs to say it, and that's why it's not just motivation. Even like we get resumes, and uh, I think you should customize every job application that you make. Make fewer job applications, because maybe you will say that you made 10 applications and nobody's responding, but probably you did not customize all the 10 applications. So definitely, customization is the key. I got a foreign internship, fully paid, when I was in college, and I sent around 250 emails, very very nice emails,
Yeah.
completely crafted for one person. I looked up their profile, customized it, changed few areas in my CV, and it was hard work. I would work 3 4 hours a day, because in final year there was not much to do. I would work 3 4 hours like intensely, and I would manage to send just 10 applications at most, because I was customizing so much and writing so much. And for 6 months I did it before I actually succeeded in getting a foreign internship. And that's where the patent part also played a role, where I was involved in a project in the field of patent research.
I can tell you
uh,
one thing, people who are here attending, great job. A lot of people may have dropped कि ये बड़ा boring है, or just sign up or don't show up. One of the basic skill, I think, Purnima asked that what is the more important skill to get a job, is to work towards getting skilled. Doesn't matter what skill. It will be people skill, it will be email skill, it will be uh, technical skill, it will be just show up and learn as much as you can, right? And keep increasing your chances by doing things up. You A lot of people said great knowledge, great insightful things, but if you don't take any action, it's good motivation, good to hear, good to do this, but take action, right? Action is the most important skill, I would say. I'm just thinking out loud here. Probably the most important skill is to have ability to take action on your plans or your wishes. I think that's the most important skill in today's age. People don't want to take action because reels are much easier to do. Right? So,
Uh, I think, let me give it, 1 minute of my share of GAN also. The first thing is DL101 is a very nice course.
yeah.
hmm,
I was also fortunate to do that sometime in mid 90s. Those days, there was nothing like E certificate. So I also got that big certificate.
oh wow.
I don't, and that was a time where India was about to sign the TRIPS. And the fun was that not very sure whether I could ever use that certificate anywhere, but I learned a lot of things. Okay. So the same thing I want to say is that let's not stop being educated. Let's move on, become learned. There's a difference. And in some of the conversation which we had, he said that no, he's lucky. Okay, he's lucky he got a foreign internship. I look at luck in a very different way. Luck is nothing but hard work, which is not noticed.
Yeah.
Luck is nothing but hard work, which is not noticed. So it's all boils down to that your effort and where you want to see yourself and how much you're making yourself suitable for that. See, I don't want to give any more gyan. I think we are almost towards ending time. Hmm.
Yeah,
But
we
it
still have
was
60 people
Yeah.
in the. Usually at the end it goes
Thank you
down,
for
but I can see that the number has remained constant, like 50, 60. It didn't go down. So
great. This session was quite a fun. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
see,
yeah,
my earlier session might have had more people, but it was a heavy session. This is much more fun.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
when we talk about career, somebody needs to say also these things. Just
no, no,
IP skills, kitna karoge?
I can tell you one more thing, Rahul. People get hired. Yes, there is a basic sense of skill has to be there. Uh, but people not always get hired because of their skills. There are a lot to it. People get hired based on how much they are open to learn, unlearn and learn again.
Mhm.
How much they kind of persist in a situation, and how much they're able to push themselves to do something which is new, which
Hmm.
is hard to do. we know sometimes we hire people, we know that they don't know anything, but we see that, yeah, ye kar lega. I can tell you one very, with this end, I'll tell you a story of Gautam. And he's very successful IP professional now. And, people reach him. He's working with one of the multinational in Pune. Uh, I'm just forgetting the name. Every Denson. And I can share his story. He's working with Every Denson now. I'll tell you Gautam's story. So Gautam, we were running some recruitment drives, and we called a candidate for interview. And the candidate came, and Gautam was like his friend who was just like accompanying him for that job interview of his friend. Now, because his friend was here and giving interviews, Gautam told HR that, hey, I'm also looking for a job. Why don't you also take my test? He was not scheduled in the interview. He just चार ने बोला ठीक है चलो, give also interview, no written or whatever, give your resume. Gautam was coming from Jharkhand, not so great, English, but still manageable, good. But something that one of my senior members have saw. So Gautam got hired, his friend did not get hired, right? And Gautam started as an illustrator in our company, where his job was to just create drawings of his design, just recreate it, create some flowcharts. He was not great in English. He was not so great back then, of course, right? But he had that ability to push hard, like that's kind of attitude that he had. And over the years, I think he spent 3-4 years with us. I think over that year, he evolved from an illustrator to a drafter. Then he moved to a new job, evolved as somebody more. And now he's at Evidence in a multinational, doing fantastic job in doing this. I take that pride. I always share the story of Gautam that, and we also take that pride. People will move on. It's absolutely okay. But I can tell you that he had no clue of IP at that day when he came, and we yet hired just because there were signs that he may be able to learn. He is a hard worker. He is somebody who will, try to. He has basic understanding of whatever he has learned so far. Whatever engineering that he has done, he has a basic clarity of the concepts. He has not. He was 7-8 pointer. He was not like a 10 pointer, whatever. But he had that clarity of concepts, right? And that built him a career. Right? You can reach Gautam, Gautam Kumar, his evidence, and you'll find on LinkedIn and go and check this story. Right? And I always take pride in telling his story that how luck works, like Professor said. It was just out of luck that he was accompanying his friend and he just came and asked HR, hey, can you also take my interview? Courage also to some extent, right? He could have said, yeah, I'm here for a company, I'm not going to do anything. Right? So I think learn from Gautam, be the fighter. And I think it's always a great story for us to tell. But yeah, thank you, Rahul. I think we are out of time. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Professor. Really, really pleasure to share a stage with you. It's my honor to be sharing this. Thank you so much.
It's our honor. It's our honor to host you. Really, thank you. It was such a complete 6 lectures we had. We had many different angles that we could cover: patent engine exam, patent analytics, then very raw career level things, and Anindya sir's talk. Covering like the whole for lawyers, non-lawyers, the entire umbrella of IPR. And even Subhadip sir's very succinct, only 5 slides he had, and he shared many practical things. So wonderful. Very happy, sir. Anindya sir, thank you for co-hosting this show with us. With NALSAR collaboration, we can get more audience and 2,000 plus registrations. So it's like only 60 right now. but we had 2,000 plus registrations. Not normal, in post-COVID era. We used to
I would
have
ask,
normally.
I thank all the participants for joining in, showing the interest, and I am eagerly waiting for all of you to join the amazing family of IP. Okay, we'll keep meeting, and I also thank all the speakers for sharing their thoughts and insight. I'm sure we'll be doing many more programs like this, similar to this, and differently, which will benefit all of us. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody. Have a great rest of the evening. Have a great weekend. See you in the fifth edition of Turnip Innovation Festival in January. And for now, thank you to Govind. Thank you to Anindya sir. And we will end the stream. Thank you. Bye bye.